Hi, George. Hope that you're doing well. Suzanne and I thought that there had to be a better way of introducing our new research direction to you, other than another boring proposal. So here's our attempt to use 21st century technology to introduce you to our novel Cradle-to-Cradle project. The Canadian Wood Fibre Centre has been supporting research at the Faculty of Forestry since 2009, when we met through mutual interest in the first Eastern Ontario operational biomass trial. Since this time, we have focused our work on characterizing woody biomass materials for their advantageous properties in combination with biopathway conversion strategies. Through our collaborative research, we have produced a database on important properties of a wide range of woody biomass resources, tied these biomass materials to their optimum end use through a biomass user's guide, and finally developed and tested a model which forecasts both quantity and quality of sawmill residue across eastern Canada. A major focus of our lab group at UFT is discovering innovative technologies for forest residues and forest industry wastes. An important innovation that has been discovered is the use of a waste product from the pulp and paper industry to make a 100% bio-based binder that is highly water resistant and strong when combined with paper fiber. This leads us to our new research proposal, with a goal of restoring forest canopy to areas that have been severely degraded by damaging resource extraction practices. Now at this point, you may be thinking to yourself, how does our past research lead to this seemingly completely new direction? So to give you the background, please take a few minutes, sit back, and listen to Mr. Peter Hoff from the Netherlands, an authority in regenerating the desert and the inventor of the Grosse water box.
Can you plant in dry areas? Do things grow there? Because in the moment nothing grows there. When you travel through these areas, you see lots of trees, not on one place, but all over the world in dry places you see them. I made some pictures of them, and they prove us that once a tree is able to establish in a desert or in a dry place, it can grow there. So then what's the problem with that tree? If you look in deserts, there's a lot of rain, much more rain than we think. Many deserts have between 6 to 20 inches of rain. The problem in most of the deserts is not the quantity. The problem is that this water falls in a peak. So you have 51 weeks dry and only 1 week of rain. And then the problem is that a seed that's germinating during this week will die afterwards, because it cannot survive the next 51 weeks. Problem, I actually also studied what is happening in Mother Nature. How does Mother Nature plant? Mother Nature plants a lot different than we do, because when we plant, we buy a very big plant that immediately evaporates, and we dig a hole. But Mother Nature doesn't do that. Mother Nature starts with a seed, and the seed is brought to the soil, on top of the soil. And it's covered by the excrement of the bird or of the cow. So Mother Nature doesn't dig a hole also. It keeps the soil intact. Why is that? Because in the soil there's a transport system of water. We call that capillary. And if you want to plant a desert, you have to keep that capillary intact. So I developed kind of an idea, a box that would make water from the air, the condensation, and that would capture the water from the air, the rain, and then store that water in the box and give it to the plant. I did trials with a handmade box from 2003 to 2005, and it worked, but of course it was in Holland, so it's not a very difficult place to grow. But I had the principles in my mind and improved the box that I had to 25 boxes. And I went to the Sahara Desert, which is more or less the mother of all deserts. And I did 4 years of trials. And after 4 years, I had 88% of the trees alive. So, thank you. With the information that I collected over the years, I decided, okay, now I'm going to invest in a box that we can make through an industrialized way, through molding. Injection molding. And I call this the Groese's water box. It is a box with a double opening. Why double opening? Suppose you want to plant 1,000,000 acres and 12% fails, then you still lose 120,000 acres. So in this box that you actually put on top of the soil, which means that you copy Mother Nature, we plant 2 seeds or 2 small trees. You nail the box on the soil, and then those 2 seeds will receive water from the box. The box itself functions like the excrement, so it prevents the evaporation of the capillary. And the cover of this box is a copy of the lotus leaf, which means that water hardly attaches to it. If you put a microscope, you see small pyramids that lower down the adhesion of the water to the surface. The condensation and the rain is captured by this box and enters into these 2 holes. And then you create kind of a water battery, which means that if you have a rain shower in a desert of only 1 day and only 4 inches, then this box is full of water. On the bottom of the box is a dripper. And the dripper gives the water that you've captured every day to the plants that are planted in the center. So 1 rain shower of 4 inches is enough to give this plant or the seed a whole year water. And after that year, the plant is established. How is it actually possible that a tree is able to grow in a rock? This is a tree that I took a photo from between Reno and Sacramento. It's growing on a rock, and 50 miles further away in Napa Valley, they grow wine plants in fertile soil, and they need 200 gallons per year. Why is it possible that nature is able to plant on a rock and the rock grows very good, and if the irrigation stops, all the wine plants die? So I started to study more than just the planting, but what happens after planting. And I found that after planting, nature makes a very different route from the route that we actually use when we plant. Nature makes what we call a radical root. And a radical root is able to make a pressure of 725 psi, which means that it's able to break every rock. It also means that if you don't use this rock, this kind of radical root, it is very difficult for us to replant deserts or eroded areas. So I started to study.
This next short clip gives an illustration of the Grosses water box in practice in a very unhospitable area in Spain. Hopefully by this point our proposal is becoming a little clearer. We have a bio-based binder derived entirely from trees, which we use to make a device that will facilitate growth of plants in dry or degraded soils, and we have lots of degraded sites in Canada, including the oil sands and Ontario's Ring of Fire, and we have a need to reduce our country's GHG emissions through CO2 capture enabled by the growth of new forests. Hence, our Cradle-to-Cradle project encompasses the use of a Canadian innovation to produce the Grosses water box out of a water-resilient bio-based material extracted from Canadian forests, manufactured through our partners in Germany and the Netherlands, and finally involving the expertise of Dr. Tanis Beardmore, a scientist at the Canadian Forestry Service. We will utilize genomic tools to optimize the selection of the appropriate genotypes for the various site conditions. Well, there you have it, George. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and we're eager to answer any questions you may have.